What happened to three of entertainment's most beloved figures? In this video, I'll be going over each legend, how their final chapters unfolded, and in some cases, I'll explain the circumstances that led to their passing. First,
when I first went to New York in '78, Vince McMahon Sr. had a couple, Phil Zacco and a couple partners, and Vinny Jr. had one building, I think, in Cape Cod.
We're going to start with Hulk Hogan, whose death on July 24th, 2025, shocked the wrestling world and beyond. From the very beginning of his career in the late 1970s, Hulk Hogan was a towering figure in professional wrestling, literally and figuratively. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was the face that launched wrestling into mainstream pop culture. Fans got attached to him through decades of entertainment, which made his sudden passing all the more tragic. His death was on July 24th, 2025, at his home in Clearwater, Florida. The morning started like any other for the 71-year-old wrestling icon, but around 9:51 a.m., emergency responders received a cardiac arrest call from his residence. Despite the desperate efforts of first responders who rushed him to Morton Plant Hospital, Hogan was pronounced dead at 11:17 a.m. What makes this story even more poignant is that just weeks before his death, there had been swirling rumors about his declining health, with some reports suggesting he was on his deathbed. Those rumors, sadly, proved to be more prophetic than anyone wanted to believe. But Hogan's story with Joe Rogan gives us a glimpse into the man behind the mustache and bandana.
He goes, "I'm going to try to hit you." I said, "Well, if you want to, you can hit me in the nose," because I saw the camera. I thought it'd be cool if he splattered in my nose. That's how crazy I was.
This is right after nose surgery?
No, I didn't have nose surgery. It was right after I had my nose broken.
Oh, you just had it broken again.
Yeah, okay. I flew back to TV.
I'm just assuming you had it fixed.
No, Andre would fix everything for you. Yeah. He'd just stand right behind you with the stumps and push everything down. But so I got in the ring, he goes, "Try to hit me, And so when he went to hit me, I just grabbed him. I said, "I don't want to hit you." He goes, "Well, hit me. Give me everything you have." I said, "No, brother, you don't want that." I said, "There's a certain place I can hit you harder than others, but if I hit you as hard as I can, it's not going to be cool." He goes, "Well, give me 50%." I went, "I really don't want to." I said,
"What's going on with Sylvester
Stallone?" No. He was, because they were filming this whole thing. Right? So I said, "Well, if you try to hit me, I'll grab you, I'll bend you over, and I'll hammer you between the shoulders." And I hit him. I probably gave him 50%, and as soon as I made contact, his face hit my cowboy boots. And he came up.
During his appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, Hogan revealed a fascinating piece of wrestling history that almost derailed his entire career before it truly began. Back when he was working for Vince McMahon Sr., not the Vince McMahon we know today, but his father, Hogan got the call of a lifetime. Sylvester Stallone wanted him for Rocky III. This should have been a dream come true, but it turned into a nightmare with his boss. When Hogan told McMahon Sr. about the movie opportunity, the response was brutal. "No, you're not. You have to be in Charlotte at noon for TV." When Hogan insisted he was going to do the movie, McMahon Sr. fired him on the spot, telling him never to come back. But here's the crazy part. Hogan was so starstruck by Stallone that he negotiated himself down from $15,000 to $14,000. As Hogan put it on Rogan's show, he was no negotiation genius. That firing seemed like the end of his WWF career, but sometimes getting fired is the best thing that can happen to you. Hogan went to Japan, then to the AWA in Minnesota, where he became a massive star. Eventually, Vince Jr. came knocking at his door at 5 a.m. in Minnesota, and they shook hands on what would become the worldwide wrestling takeover that made Hogan a household name. Without that initial firing, we might never have gotten the Hulk Hogan that defined an era of entertainment. Another character who had an unexpected final chapter was Gilbert Gottfried, one of the most distinctive voices in comedy who left us far too soon. Unlike Hogan's sudden departure, Gottfried's passing came after a long battle with a rare genetic disorder. On April 12, 2022, at the age of 67, Gilbert Gottfried died from complications related to myotonic dystrophy type 2, a condition that affects the heart and other muscles. Throughout his career, Gottfried was known for his controversial humor and his ability to push boundaries that other comedians wouldn't dare approach. But what many people don't know is how his career almost ended before it really began. And it happened on the biggest stage in comedy, Saturday Night Live. His experience on SNL was, in his own words, terrible, and it gives us insight into both the man and the brutal world of television comedy. Gottfried was part of SNL's second cast, which was basically a suicide mission.
Then they got in Dick Ebersol was the next one, and Dick Ebersol was after my season. My season was Gene Domanion, but the idea back then of Saturday Night Live with different cast members, that just wasn't. Now it's like the cast changes every 5 minutes.
Right.
But back then it was like, no, it would be like saying, like in the middle of Beatlemania, that we're getting 4 other guys to be the Beatles. Or when Friends was on, we're recasting Friends, but just watch it the same way. And so there were news stories and articles saying, how dare they? This was sacrilege.
So that's funny. So you were like the second cast?
As he explained to Joe Rogan, when Lorne Michaels and the original cast left, putting together a new SNL cast was like saying in the middle of Beatlemania that we're getting 4 other guys to be the Beatles. The media and fans were already against them before they even got on air. But the real kicker came in, how Gilbert found out he was fired. There was a table at SNL where they would throw fan letters, and while waiting to meet with producer Dick Ebersol about changes, Gilbert decided to kill time by reading one. The letter started with, "Dear Gilbert, I'm so sorry about what happened to you." That's how we learned he'd been fired, from a 15-year-old fan from Omaha, who somehow knew before he did. The writers at SNL made their feelings clear about Gilbert in the most humiliating way possible. They wrote a funeral sketch where Gilbert played the dead body, meaning he just had to lie there in a coffin while everyone else performed around it. It was their way of saying "drop dead" without actually saying it. As Gilbert told Rogan, that's how much they hated me. But Gilbert got the last laugh. His unique voice and fearless approach to comedy made him a legend. From his work as the Aflac Duck to his memorable voice roles in Disney's Aladdin as Iago the Parrot, Gilbert carved out a niche that no one else could fill. His death marked the end of an era in comedy, the kind of boundary-pushing performer who could make audiences simultaneously laugh and gasp in horror. The third legend we lost was Bob Saget, whose death was perhaps the most shocking of all because of how it happened. On January 9th, 2022, Bob Saget died at the age of 65 from what was ruled accidental blunt head trauma. He was found in his hotel room at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando after performing stand-up comedy the night before. The man who made millions of families laugh, as Danny Tanner on Full House, died alone in a hotel room, and the circumstances still leave questions. What makes Bob's story even more compelling is his connection to comedy legends that he shared on the Joe Rogan Experience.
And he did. And he was doing faith healing shows, and they told me a story where he had been, I wasn't going to tell it, but it's, so they're healing people. So they're in, I don't know where. And he goes, "Come up here and we're gonna heal you." And like a 7-foot tall guy with drawstring pants and a t-shirt. He said he was like Lenny from Mice and Men. He was mentally impaired. He said he was gonna come up and he was gonna do the whole thing with him and get out the spirit and all that. And as these guys coming up, he runs up to the stage and he's so tall he hits his head on a beam and he splits his head open, but he doesn't fall down. Bill, his brother, will tell you this story. And the guy's pants fall down, and he had the biggest in the world, and so his head is gushing blood and is swinging, and he's going like young Frankenstein, Peter Boyle, and it's horrifically upsetting. And the way it's been told to me, I don't know if these stories whisper down the lane, is that they went back to the same place after a while. The guy came back. And he had some other mishap. I don't want to say he hit his head again, but he fell. He was the same guy, just trying to have a redo to get healed.
Oh, God.
I don't know what's more embarrassing. Well, if your head gets split open, but the whole room can see you've got a giant, maybe it's a blessing and a curse. I don't know.
Saget wasn't just America's dad from TV. He was deeply connected to some of the most legendary and troubled figures in comedy history. He was the guy who got Sam Kinison his first spot at the Comedy Store, and he was instrumental in launching Kinison's career. Saget met Kinison in Houston when Sam had been banned from the Comedy Workshop for the outrageous things he would say on stage. Kinison had come from running tent revival shows with his brother, so he had this unique blend of religious background and absolute cynicism about faith. When Saget met him, Kinison was so desperate to perform that he had put up pictures of himself on telephone poles around Houston. And when the club banned him, he appeared on the front page of the Houston Chronicle dressed in a diaper and crown of thorns, claiming he was being persecuted just like Jesus. Saget saw something special in this wild, controversial performer and convinced Mitzi Shore to watch him at the Comedy Store. After Kinison's set, Rodney Dangerfield happened to be there, and that led to Sam getting on Rodney's HBO Young Comedian special. Within a year, Kinison went from being banned from clubs to being in movies like Back to School. But here's what makes Bob's story even more touching. He was there for these comedy legends at their lowest points. He talked about how Rodney Dangerfield, despite all his success, had this mantra: "You just go like a tank, because nobody wants you to make it. Everybody's trying to stop you. You just go like a tank." Saget even officiated Rodney's funeral, speaking at the service for a man who had become not just a comedy idol, but a true friend. Saget understood that comedy came from pain. He knew that the funniest people were often the most damaged, and he had this incredible ability to nurture talent while dealing with his own demons. The fact that he died alone in a hotel room after making people laugh feels like a cruel irony for someone who spent his life bringing joy to others. What connects all three of these men, Hogan, Gottfried, and Saget, is that they were authentic in a world that often rewards fakeness. Hogan could have played it safe and stayed in his lane, but he took risks that almost destroyed his career before making him a global icon. Gottfried never toned down his act to be more palatable, even when it cost him jobs. Saget balanced being America's wholesome dad on TV while maintaining his edge as a stand-up comedian who could go as dark as anyone. These weren't just entertainers, they were storytellers who understood that the best stories come from real experience, real pain, and real joy. Hogan's story of getting fired for chasing his dreams, only to come back stronger, is the American dream in action. Gottfried's willingness to be hated for his art rather than loved for compromising shows the dedication of a true artist. And Saget's role in nurturing other comedians while struggling with his own battles shows the heart of someone who understood that entertainment is about lifting others up, even when you're falling down. The entertainment world lost three irreplaceable voices, but their stories remind us that success isn't just about the destination. It's about the journey, the risks you're willing to take, and the authenticity you bring to your craft. Whether they were making us laugh, cheer, or gasp in amazement, these three legends understood that entertainment is about connection. And their final chapters, though tragic, are part of stories that will continue to inspire long after they're gone. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you want more stories about the legends who shaped entertainment. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the best stories are the ones that don't have perfect endings, because they remind us that life, like entertainment, is unpredictable, beautiful, and sometimes heartbreaking.